Welcome to the Duncan Cowichan Chamber of Commerce Provincial Election Candidate Interview Series. Joining us today is Cammy Lockwood, the BC Green Party candidate for Cowichan Valley. Cammy owns Lockwood Farms and has been an advocate for sustainable agriculture and environmental health. Her platform emphasizes community-focused sustainability and climate action, drawing from her direct experience as a local farmer. Today we're going to discuss how her approach to agriculture and sustainability can support both the community and the local economy. Welcome, Cammy.
Thank you very much.
All right, so number one, how do you see the role of business in driving economic growth, and what specific policies would you put forward to create a thriving business environment?
All right. Well, I'm very fortunate to be here today, also as a business owner in the Cowichan Valley. I started Lockwood Farms with my husband back in 2011, and we've run through the whole gamut of different stages of business growth and development, starting it as like a partnership and graduating into a corporation. And also we've managed to scale up and work through all the regulatory framework of growing from 3 chickens literally to over 6,000 hens, and self-marketing and self-distributing all those eggs. So I have a really good, strong understanding of business. And within that, I can really see that one of the key things, especially for farmers, is labor. Labor is constantly an issue. And we can see that in so many different areas of our society. The jobs, unfortunately, are just not paying enough to be able to meet rent. So we're really looking for BC Greens, really looking at actually addressing the affordability crisis and ensuring that we have good communities where people want to live so that they can continue to thrive. And in terms of business, the platform is centered around small businesses and making sure that small businesses work and that we can compete in this environment. What we see is the story of British Columbia as a colonial resource province and you can see it still happening. We're continuing to extract resources and ship them off at the lowest possible dollar. And what I really want to see is those resources staying within the province, being further processed, as well as helping boost the economy by the knowledge base of the economy. There's so many skilled people right here in the Cowichan Valley, but across the province, who need good work, who need good solid jobs, and they're no longer looking to industry for that. They're looking to start businesses. They're looking to be involved in innovative new businesses. So the BC Green platform really looks to bolster that area as well.
Okay, great. So one of the problems now that's really front of mind is mental health and the crime and safety crisis that's going on. So mental health and public safety are growing concerns for businesses, employees, and customers alike. How do you plan to work with law enforcement and community organizations to tackle mental health challenges and ensure the safety of businesses, their staff, and the public throughout the Cowichan Valley?
Okay, how to break this one down. I see huge policy failures here. And what we've ended up with is that small businesses, in particular storefront owners, bear the brunt of the societal crisis. And it's completely unfair to expect small business owners to be picking up the pieces of our society every morning just to open the doors to their business. That is a complete failure of government on so many different levels. So BC Green Platform is looking at and addressing these issues as a whole, looking at the toxic drug supply along with housing and mental health care and supports, as well as readily available access to treatment facilities, to really actually address the root of this problem and not just to enforce more policing on top of it, and to try and remove the problem into a different location. Like that's not how we're looking at it. That's not how we're addressing it. But I just really want to emphasize that we hear small business like it's not up to you. You shouldn't have to be paying more for your own personal security guards. You shouldn't have to be addressing your infrastructure to deal with this. That's completely unfair on small businesses. And I've seen a lot of people, a lot of small business owners start with compassion. And they are compassionate people, but compassion runs out, and it doesn't extend to your staff, and you have to lay them off. because you can't keep up any longer. So,
Gotcha. Good, thank you. Speaking of the cost of doing business, many small and medium-sized businesses are struggling with rising costs and regulatory pressures. What are you going to do to ease the tax and regulatory burden on these businesses? Are there any specific relief or incentive programs you'll put in place to help them stay competitive?
It's very true. We can see the rising costs. I feel it very much in my own business, and the result of that is that we actually have to charge more for our eggs just to be able to keep up and to keep our staff. Um, again, going back to addressing the actual cost of living, and being able to provide government services that change people's outlook and literally puts more money in their pockets, instead of just offering a once-off tax break. What BC Greens is looking at doing is ensuring that we have fast, frequent, and free public transit. I recently overheard a job interview at a coffee shop, and the potential employer actually had to ask, do you have a car? How can you get here? Because we can't rely on our bus system. And that's a failure right there. It's important to have a good bus system to get people to work. And having that bus system would also greatly reduce their monthly costs of owning and running a vehicle. So looking at different things like that to actually address the cost of living, that would also put more money in people's pockets to be able to spend locally. I know as a local farmer that it's really, we have to charge a certain amount to be able to make our ends meet. And because of that, we depend on people having a solid income to be able to purchase locally, because we do realize that it's more expensive. So firstly, addressing the cost of living for people would bolster the economy in many, many other ways.
Okay. One of the big problems these days is housing and staffing. So with new hospital on the way, finding affordable housing and attracting skilled professionals has become an urgent issue. How will your government address the housing crunch to ensure local businesses and essential services like healthcare can hire and retain staff that they need?
So really what's happened with our housing market is that, well, in 2019, for example, or 2020, a one-bedroom house was a one-bedroom flat average rent was just over $900. And now in 2024, what we're seeing is we actually have more vacancy, but the average rent for the same space is over $2,100, which of course is just way too much for people to keep up with. And the suggestion has been just to increase supply, but that's really not the answer. What we need is to look at a non-financial incentive that puts housing and people first. BC Greens are really coming from a standpoint of housing as a human right, and that everybody needs a safe place to live. And if we manage that, and if we are able to put together non-market housing that cannot be bought and sold, and we're taking the profit incentive out of the housing market, that opens it up for people to actually have a safe and secure spot to live. So immediately we're putting in vacancy controls to help reduce rent evictions. And over the long term, we're proposing to build 26,000 units a year of non-market housing.
Okay. And one more, transportation and the Island Rail Corridor. Transportation is key to keeping our local economy moving. What's your stance on restoring rail service throughout the Island Rail Corridor? How do you plan to invest in public transportation and infrastructure to benefit businesses and residents of our region?
Okay, so that question has a lot of different parts to it.
Yeah.
So firstly, I will say that we do, as a small business owner, feel the effects of the Island Rail Corridor. One of the things the Island Rail Corridor did was transport a lot of animal feed. And it certainly has increased our prices without having that corridor available. I know for looking at, there's been so much work done on the Island Rail Corridor. I want to see the community really come to a strong decision on that as to how to move forward. In the meantime, my focus is going to be on really developing a good public transit system and a bus system, and having regular buses to and from Victoria and to Nanaimo, fast, frequent, and free, all those things that we're talking about. That would give us a very good measure and a really good stepping stone and help grow public transit in a very natural way. that would develop into rail. I from what I understand is that our current tracks are not going to be able to sustain a high-speed rail or a commuter rail. So I think looking at how to get people from work to work is incredibly important. So having a strong bus service and a strong public transit service in place is going to help kind of bridge that gap and make that step easier. And in the meantime, I want to see a strong community group, a coalition. And I know there's just been so much work done already on the Island Rail Corridor. And it's something that BC Greens, whatever the community decides, is going to be there, and it's going to be strongly advocating for the funding, because primarily, no matter which way we go, no matter whether it's rails to trails, or if it's getting the railway up and going, it's going to cost a significant investment. And BC Greens has been very, very prepared to advocate for that on all levels.
Great, thanks. So anything you would like to say to the business community in general?
Anything I'd like to say to the business community in general? Yeah, actually, I do want to talk about the carbon tax. I'm very, very pleased to stand with BC Greens. In our platform, we've released a new tax platform, and where we're looking for tax our platform is really ambitious. It is costly, but we're looking at changing the tax system, reviewing the entire tax system, because it needs a lot of work. And I know that as a person, as a small business owner and an employer, it does need a lot of work. But essentially, where we're looking for the revenue is not from small businesses, is not from ordinary people. Where we're looking at and where we're going to be increasing taxes is on people who own over $3 million worth of assets, businesses that are making over $1 billion of profit. It'll be taxed the same rate until you hit that $1 billion and $1. Then that $1 is going to be taxed at a higher rate of 18%. And we're also looking at taxing people who are earning an income of over $350,000 a year. So, we look at that and go, you've won capitalism, good job. Now it's time to give some of that back to the community. And when it comes to it too, the carbon tax, the large-scale oil and gas companies are being subsidized incredibly. They're only paying 65% of what you and I pay at the pump. And for most British Columbians, carbon tax is actually coming back as a rebate, and it's not actually coming out of pocket. So the carbon tax is a very strong environmental solution. BC Greens are proposing that we bring it up so that the large-scale oil and gas companies are paying their fair share, and that we're ensuring that all those funds are going into alternative energies and into community grants and into rebates for individuals and for people.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So we speak with Cammy Lockwood, BC Green candidate. Make sure you get out and vote October 19th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Heichka.